A recent Harvard Business School survey of 3,000 workers found that 92% credited curious people with bringing new ideas into teams and viewed curiosity as a catalyst for job satisfaction, motivation, innovation, and high performance. Harvard also suggests that managers who work hard at enabling curiosity in their team are more successful, and recommend that managers role model the behaviour. When we are curious, we approach the world with a childlike habit of poking and prodding and asking questions. We are attracted to new experiences. Rather than pursuing an agenda or a desired set of answers, we follow our questions where they lead. There is a lot you can do to nurture and increase your own curiosity. In this session, we'll look at key tips to help you become more curious. Then we will look at the 4 habits of successfully curious people. There are 3 barriers to curiosity: dwelling in the past, allowing ourselves to accept boredom, and living in fear. Don't dwell in the past, focus on the future. When you spend all your time worrying about the past, you don't give yourself a chance to be curious about the future. So rather than worrying about what you could have, would have, or should have changed about your last assignment, try to focus on strategies for blowing your next project out of the water. The problem for many adults is that we stop being curious about new experiences and are instead focused on understanding what we've already been through. Try to be more future focused. Allow yourself to view the situation from a different perspective. Look at the situation through the eyes of your competitor, your boss, or an outsider. What would they suggest? What concerns would they have? What challenges do they face? When we are curious about others and talk to people outside our team, we become better able to understand those with different views than our own.
Most people stick with the same things because they are afraid to try something different. It seems easier, but it closes down your curiosity and stunts your personal growth. Think, what is the worst thing that can happen here? In most cases, nothing really bad will happen if you try something new. If nobody will die or be injured, then why not try it? Nobody ever died from embarrassment. Many people find themselves plagued by their own doubts, which causes them to miss out on new places, ideas, people, and experiences. But oftentimes, doing something unexpected can trigger a chain of reactions, both positive and negative, that you can learn from. Change can be a scary thing when we become so used to a routine that we don't even have to think about it. The more curious you are, the less afraid you'll be. Focus on the positive outcomes when you try something new. Be more like the farmer and less like the frog. As some homework, take time to watch the movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey. You don't have to go as far as his character, but look at what opened up to him just because he chose to say yes. When you're busy worrying about the what-ifs, you're shutting yourselves off from these type of unexpected opportunities. The more you say you're bored, the less opportunity your mind has to grow. If you look at something and find it boring, you are not looking hard enough. Stuck in a waiting room and bored out of your mind? Then grab a journal you would never read otherwise and read a paper that piques your interest. Strike up a conversation with a work colleague and ask them to tell you what they do at work, what they like, what they find challenging. Watch the mannerisms of the people around you and be fascinated by their personal quirks. Giving in to boredom is a negative mindset. Challenge yourself to find a new focus. In the 1930s, at the Olivetti typewriter factory, someone caught a worker leaving the factory with a bag full of iron pieces and machinery. They accused him of stealing, and it looked like he would lose his job. He told the boss that he was taking the parts home to work on a new machine over the weekend because he didn't have time while performing his regular job. Instead of firing him, Olivetti gave him time to create the machine. The result was Divisuma, the first electronic calculator, and Olivetti promoted the worker to technical director. Unlike leaders who would have shown him the door, Olivetti gave him the space to explore his curiosity with remarkable results. Humans are learning animals who naturally seek out novelty. When we experience novelty, the brain reacts by releasing endorphins as a reward. Not only this, but novelty stimulates the brain to build more neural networks and increases links between ideas. Imagine you're in a meeting room. Suddenly your attention is diverted when a gorilla enters the room. The entrance of the gorilla was a novel event. It was unexpected and out of context. Novel events attract attention, and they are more effectively encoded in the memory than predictable events. So novelty wakes up the brain and increases its ability to link to a new insight. And insight is where new ideas and clever solutions come from. So, how can we increase novelty in our day? Travelling is a great way to build curiosity. When you go somewhere new, you will naturally want to learn about your new environment. Keep an idea journal. Every time something sparks your interest or raises a question, jot it down. Try to find a different way to do some of your daily work tasks. Take a different route to work. Chances are that you'll notice something new. Look up some life hacks on YouTube. Even doing something as simple as using your mouse with your non-dominant hand will get your brain thinking differently. Add some novelty to your day. According to Harvard research, curious people are more likely to question what they see and hear. Curious people know that they have an unconscious bias and will question this. So they are less likely to stereotype people and less likely to make assumptions, and more likely to be open to grey areas between the black and white. Curiosity has these positive effects because it leads us to generate alternatives. Harness intellectual diversity. Harness the intellectual diversity around you. Work with a diverse group of people who enjoy looking at the world differently from you. Some people find a lively discussion the most effective means of generating new ideas, but others do their best creative thinking when they have quiet time alone. In fact, in one survey of adults living in the US, the UK, Germany, France and Japan, 70% said that they prefer to work by themselves versus collaborating with others when they're being creative. Take time and space to be reflective and explore ideas quietly on your own, where interruptions will be minimal. Expose yourself to diverse pieces of knowledge by connecting them with outside input. Fill your workspace with a variety of stimuli to encourage you to make new connections and to think in new ways. Tap into some subject matter that you don't know much about. Whether you focus on productivity habits, beer brewing, or something entirely different is up to you. The important part is that the content is unfamiliar. In the marketplace for talent, the people most in demand will always be those who offer expertise that few others possess. But having a breadth of knowledge is increasingly valuable too. Reading is one of the best ways to widen your knowledge base. Visit a physical bookstore. In the era of Google searches, we have no problem finding the exact answer to our question, but this stops serendipity. We rarely come across information that is not specific to our question. Visiting a library allows us to encounter other information in a way that is not dictated by the structure of the algorithm. Read the news. Keep up with what's happening in the industry. There's a lot going on in the world every day. If you take a few minutes to browse some news sites each day, you are sure to come across something that interests you. What are your customers saying? What new products are on offer? What are the emerging technologies? Be curious about new ways of doing things. So why should we do this? Well, a Harvard survey of 3,000 workers in China, Germany and the States found that 84% believe that curiosity catalyzes new ideas. And 74% of the group thought that it inspires unique, valuable talents. Not only that, 63% of the group thought it helps you get promoted. Curiosity is valuable to us and the business. Harvard studies suggest that when we demonstrate curiosity about others by asking questions, people like us more and view us as more competent. And the trust created by being interested in others improves our relationships. By asking questions, we promote more meaningful connections and more creative outcomes. When we ask curious questions, it is best to begin with a broad question and then ask gradually more specific follow-up questions. This is known as funneling and is a great way to spark new ideas. Once you have a good question, figure out how to break it down. Use your original question as a starting point and then branch out. Thinking of new questions will encourage your creativity because you'll be coming up with new angles from which to consider the topic. Here are 5 questions that can help us reflect after we've had an experience and help us build insight. What happened? What worked and what didn't work? What does that mean? What was interesting about this? If Einstein experienced that situation, what would he have said? Here are 5 questions that can help us plan for a new experience. How will we do this? What is great about the plan? What obstacles can get in the way and how can we get around them? What could help us achieve this? How can we take advantage of this? What would Einstein do in this situation? Ask questions that challenge conventional wisdom and the status quo. Ask other people to get their ideas and to see things from another viewpoint. And by the way, the last question is intended to be novel, because that is the way curious people like to ask questions. Of course, if we ask other people these types of questions, we will have to use the final and most valuable habit: listen without prejudice. Research tells us that curious people are often considered good listeners and conversationalists. By suspending judgment, you're ultimately allowing yourself to be more receptive to what someone is saying. You're focusing less on what you're going to say next and more on the words and information they're choosing to tell you, or not tell you. Stephen Covey knew that the secret of a highly effective person was to ask questions and to listen. How can you tell if you are a great listener? Well, just think about the last time someone stopped you and told you that you are a great listener. Can you think of a time that happened? My guess is that very few of you can testify that this has happened to you recently. So let's get back to basics. What is listening? Check out this picture here. Which parts of this person's head are used for listening? Well, the ears, obviously. That's where the sound goes in. But what about the brain? The brain is making sense of those sounds and trying to understand. But these are not the only parts involved. What about the eyes? How do they listen? To truly listen, we use all of our senses. We're not just hearing the words, we're also hearing the tone of voice. We're also looking at someone's facial expression and body language. All of our senses are deriving the meaning from being focused on this person.
Listening is probably the most powerful tool you have, and the secret to listening is really simple. To listen, we need to stop talking. It really is that simple. If we don't talk, the other person can speak and tell us something useful. So we need to stop words coming out of our mouth. We need to stop words formulating in our head. We need to be totally in the present with the person we're listening to, not thinking about what we will say next. It really is that simple. Stopping talking is the first major step towards good listening habits. Why not try this in your next conversation? Let the other person speak and really hear them. Okay, so there are 3 things to avoid and 4 things to try to be more curious. Good luck.